Hey, welcome to the podcast. Today we're joined by not only a friend, but a church member, but also a guy that has an incredible testimony, Joshua Broome. And Joshua, man, you've got an incredible story. And today we're going to be talking about things like pornography, its impact and effects on our kids. We're going to be talking about how to live free in a digital media world.
Yeah.
And you're probably an expert in this area. And so we're blessed to have one of our own come and share. But before we dive into all of that, just start with your story of just being in the adult film industry, but then having a radical encounter with Christ, and now just being passionate about steering kids and families and adults away from that industry and towards the one truth, who's Jesus Christ. So kind of share your story, man.
Yeah, I think to tell the story with the context it needs, I would need to just hop back in time for a moment. Just growing up as a kid in South Carolina, not having a dad was a huge part of my story. And not only having a dad, my dad, or even my grandfather having a convenience store across the street from the restaurant that my mom worked at, and then literally sitting at that booth. You know how it is as a teenager. I'm eating my second lunch before I eat my third dinner. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking out this window and I see this green Z71 pull up, and it's my dad. And Grandpa comes out and tells him hello and tells him goodbye when he leaves. And eventually I see my dad pull up, and he's got my brother and my sister, and I don't know my dad, my brother, or my sister. And even with them being across the street, I could see them, but they weren't in my life.
Right.
And just the way that your brain works is like, man, you got to make sense of what doesn't make sense to you. And what made sense to me is, man, if my dad is across the street and he doesn't want to be in my life, then maybe there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And then as the way that God has designed most men, we as achievers, which is a good thing under the surrender and submission of Jesus Christ, where we do good work and we have good work ethic and we work hard and all that good stuff. But if you filter in brokenness to that, you can believe the lie that you need to work really hard so that you can feel like you're enough. And that was what I believed. I'm like, man, if I'm the problem, maybe I can be the solution. And that kind of set the path for me trying to be the best student, be the best athlete, not so that I could be good at academics or be good at athletics. I wanted to hear what could maybe mitigate the gap in my heart, where I wanted to hear, son, I'm proud of you.
Sure.
So I thought maybe if I hit enough game-winning shots and made enough A's, that would replace that void in my heart. And it did in a moment, but it never lasted. And then at 13, I saw pornography for the first time. And not having a dad, not having a biblical foundation, like my grandparents were Christians and went to church, and I went to church with them sometimes, but I didn't have a foundation of who I was in Christ. I certainly didn't understand the Bible. I didn't have a relationship with God. So I saw, the world educated me on what sex, intimacy, and, even relationships were. And I saw that, and I started using that as a lens in which maybe if I do what I see, I'll feel what I don't.
Right.
I'll feel accepted. I'll feel love. And that just kind of set the bar for me to make a ton of bad decisions. And I go to college, and I'm in a fraternity, and I'm playing college basketball, and I've got access to stuff which just made, the brokenness worse. I moved to Hollywood, and I'm modeling and acting, and I'm making good money, and I got friends, and I'm living in a cool place. And then in walk these 3 girls at a bar. They were headhunters for the porn industry, meaning that they got sent out on Friday and Saturday nights looking for good-looking guys, good-looking girls, and they would just ask them, hey, would you ever consider doing porn? And which seems crazy, and I thought it was crazy when I heard it. I'm just like, no, I never wrote down like somewhere like what I want to do when I grow up, do that. And I just thought, that seems crazy. But at the same time, I didn't have a good reason to say no.
Right.
And when you don't have a good reason to say no, you'll say yes to something you should say no to. And I said, well, maybe I have a meeting with this guy, I'll check it out. And the first time I sit down with this agent in the porn industry, it should have been a red flag, but he asked me, hey, what does your family dynamic look like? How'd you grow up? That was the first thing he asked me. And it was a value proposition. He's trying to extract information from me so that if I say, hey, I grew up just me and my mom, perfect. You got a father wound.
Right.
So I can use that information to manipulate you to get you to do what I want. So I'm gonna say, hey, man, I can make you famous. I can make you feel seen. I can make you feel special. I can fill that void. We'll make you famous. You'll be the guy, and oh, you're an actor. That's awesome. You can use that, to leverage, your platform in this industry, and you'll be the guy. You'll make all the money. You'll be the star. And the scariest part is he wasn't lying. I made millions of dollars. I became a star in that industry, but it equated to so much brokenness because it was a counterfeit version of what I actually wanted to do. And that blew up my life. And, I did one film and it blew up my life. My actual manager for acting and modeling fired me on the spot. This is
goodbye, huh?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is 2006, so very different world. Yeah. So it's like you did a porn, like we can't be associated with you. Like we think the world of you, but so sorry, you're out. And then, as a kid, I put all my worth in. If you would have asked me who I was, I'm like, man, I'm my mother's son. I remember as a kid, throwing a can of green beans at a guy trying to talk to my mama in the grocery store. I'm like, get away from my mama, and then when my mom was hurt, when I told her I did that, because, being from a small town in South Carolina, it only takes one person to know one thing for everybody to know everything. And someone saw it, and someone said to somebody, and then all of a sudden, my uncle found out. My uncle told my mom, and my mom called me. Joshua Luke. Did you do this?
You got the middle name out of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I bet.
And I was just like, Mom, I did. And to hear the hurt in her voice, it's like, man. Because what Satan did in that moment was that he almost like doubled down on the lie that I believed about myself. Like in the same way that when I saw that my dad didn't want me, I felt inadequate, and it made me feel like I was less than. Right. And maybe it wasn't that I was a kid that bad things happened to. I began to believe I was bad. Right. And Satan doubled down in that. When I hurt my mom, it was like me hurting the only person that never hurt me. Satan whispered in my ear, see, you're exactly who you thought you were. Right. And then I was like, well, if this is who I am, then my behavior is going to follow my belief. And it's like, this is just who I am. I must continue doing this. And naively believed and so many people do this in different ways, where you'll do something to blow up your life, right, and then it'll make sense for you to continue doing it. Because it's almost like, if you ate a Twinkie at breakfast or a donut at breakfast, you're like, well, I might as well have, McDonald's for lunch and KFC for dinner, because I've already blown it for this day. And we don't look at the totality of our life. Right. And it's like, that's how I thought. I'm like, well, I've already blown it, so I might as well double down. And that's what I did. And I stayed in that industry for 7 years. And
7 years.
7 years, did 1,000 movies and won 30 different awards, made millions of dollars, and had all this stuff. And I had, had the Breitling and the Penthouse and all this stuff, and was doing movies on Showtime even and stuff. And in 2012, I finally won this award that I was trying to win, where it was like Performer of the Year. So it was like the biggest award you can win. And, I'll kind of transition from here. But this moment in my life, it was like, if I won Performer of the Year, it was my peers in the studios in that industry saying, you're the guy.
Right.
And I thought if I felt chosen in that way, that would validate me in a way that would supersede the brokenness in my life.
Did it?
And when it didn't, I think it's a wild way to look at like Romans 2:4, where it talks about God's love, His kindness, His patience leads us into repentance. Mm-hmm. And it's like God allowing me to experience everything that I thought would fix my life, to realize that it would not fix my life, that it was Him and Him alone that would fix my life. I was just like, gosh. And then it amplified the anxiety, deepened the depression, and I tried to take my life.
Wow.
I thought, I've gone too far, I've done too much. And then,
that was the turning point. As you got to where you thought you would be, that you would feel fulfilled, it'd be everything, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so it became worse.
Yeah. And then I thought it was either die or run, and I ran, and then I put on another hat and built another kingdom. So I opened a gym and got a bunch of credentials and got a great mentor. And there was this guy who was the strength conditioning coach for the Carolina Hurricanes that mentored me and invited me to a bunch of people. And all of a sudden I was doing strength conditioning for a few universities. I was training the Wake County SWAT team. And I was doing all this stuff and making good money again. still same person, still broken, still unsatisfied. And then this girl walked into the gym that I was coaching, and I asked her out about 17 times, and she said no 17 times. And then she was just like, hey, I go for a long run before church on Sundays. You can come with me if you want. And I went because I was going to, take whatever I could get. And I don't know if it was conviction or more so like me trying to get in front of a problem before it happened, because I was like, man, she doesn't really hang out at the gym, so she probably doesn't know my story. And I was just like, hey, just so you know, I'm this kid that, his daddy didn't want, and me trying to fill that void, I did a lot of bad things, and specifically I did a lot of pornography, and it's on the internet for the world to see, and that creates a ton of shame in my life. This is who I am, not what I did. Yeah. This is who I am. And she was like, holy smokes, and we walked in silence for a little while, and I didn't know if she was going to.
It wasn't a long run. It was straight to church with that run.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah, and it was just like, after I said that to you, she just like was in silence. And I was like, either she's going to judo chop me in the throat, or she's going to tell me to take a hike. And instead, after a few minutes, she just kind of planted her feet and looked at me, and she was like, hey, I don't want to overlook the stuff with your dad. I can't relate, but I bet it's incredibly painful. And I don't want to say that your decisions don't have consequences. I'm not saying that at all, but I do want to tell you that you're not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. And you won't be defined by the greatest thing you ever do, because you're not the author of you. God is. Do you know him? And the answer was no. Yeah. And she invited me to church, and I heard a sermon on 2 Samuel chapter 9, and when Mephibosheth responded in verse 8 saying, hey, I understand you're offering me, this land and a seat at the table and inviting me into your kingdom, but don't you know who I am? Like, where he refers to himself as a dead dog. I was like, gosh, like, yes. And then he pivoted to Hebrews 12:2, and there was something about the joy that was set before him that captivated me. I'm like, where would that joy come from? Right. And then he paints the picture of the gospel. Romans 3:23, 6:23, 10:9 goes back to 5:8. And when he double tapped on 5:8, I was just like, man, Jesus knew everything I'd ever done as he went to the cross. Yeah. And not only did he choose to die for me when I certainly didn't deserve it, he did it with joy in his heart. Why? Right. Because he loved me.
Wow. And that changed your heart, changed your direction, and now
put me on my face.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about it is you've taken that experience that you had, and you acknowledge a real crisis we're experiencing, and in our country and pretty much around the world. We're going to talk about that in a second. So, man, I'd love for you just today's very different than 2006,
very different,
or 7 or 8, or even 2012.
Yeah,
man, we've got kids walking around with phones and access to porn and just the media. So talk about when it comes to pornography. Let's just start at the youngest age. What is the media impact on our youngest kids? When are they first exposed typically to pornography on their phones or iPads or the friend's phone or whatever? I mean, what are you seeing out there? What does the data and research show?
Yeah, so average age of exposure is somewhere around 8 years old. So it was trending towards 11, and it was because that was when around between 11 and 13 years old when people were getting their first cell phones. Well, now since post-COVID, because of the utilization of iPads and other technologies, that's just become a normative in schools. And on those devices, they're unprotected. And 84% of the time when kids are seeing porn for the first time, they're on an unprotected device, not looking for porn, because porn is looking for them. And they could type in something about the human body and find hardcore pornography. Wow. So it's either being showed to them on devices where they're looking for something simple, or it's being showed to them by a second party. But 84% of the time, there's not a kid that heard something and he felt, man, let me look up porn. No, it's being shown to them involuntarily. And then because of that, your prefrontal cortex is only around 50% developed between 8 to 11 years old. So that part of your brain, it determines how you regulate your emotions, and it's your ability to be resilient. It impacts your impulse control. So how evil of it is of Satan to impact the part of your brain that doesn't allow you to not do the thing you don't want to do. And it's like, well, if it impacts your ability to regulate your emotions, that exists beyond porn. Like, that contributes to obesity, suicidal ideation, depression, anything where it's like, I have an emotion and I don't know what to do with it because the part of the brain that is used to dictate that and to regulate myself is now damaged because I'm consuming something that's harming my mind.
Wow. And so it starts so young, but
Yeah.
how does that then translate as you move up into maybe you're exposed at 8 or 9 or 10, and then you move into your teen years, and then all of a sudden puberty kicks in?
Yeah.
What's the impact not just on the kids, but now on teenagers? How do they respond?
Yeah, it's wild to look at that data because Barna did a research thing with myself and Pure Desire, and we polled 3,500 different youth ministries within different churches across the United States. And what we found is in 87% of those churches, ages 18 to 25, 87% those teenagers to 25, they're watching porn once a month, minimum.
That's in the church.
In the church.
In the church.
And then 67% of girls in the church, 18 to 25, watching porn at least once a month.
Now that's been a significant change as well. Everybody always thought, man, this is a boy problem. This is a guy problem. But now it's also a girl problem.
So that number is up. That number is up 400% since COVID.
Wow.
And I think it's a lot to do with COVID, but also OnlyFans. And like the OnlyFans data is insane.
Yeah.
But let's just double tap on what we're talking about. So with pornography, if you look at Netflix, Disney, the NBA, that collective revenue for 2024 was $153 billion. Porn's revenue for 2024 collectively, $172 billion.
So more than all three of those combined.
All three of those combined, almost by $20 billion.
I mean, even if you just stopped at NFL and didn't add the other two, we'd say no way, right?
Yeah.
We'd say no, NFL is too huge. And that's the impact. That's the revenue that the porn industry just makes every year.
And it's free.
And it's free.
So what does that mean? So,
what does that mean?
Yeah, so like because they make all their money via marketing dollars.
Right.
So meaning that why does a Super Bowl commercial cost exponentially more than a minor league baseball game?
Right,
like why would it cost more? Well, you got more eyes on it.
Yeah.
So where there's eyes, there's dollars.
Right.
So to the extent in the last presidential election, 7 swing states, they ran an ad on one website and it said, hey, if you do not vote a certain way, you're going to lose access to this website. And in 7 states, they did that. Why would you do that? On that one website, 100 million unique users per day.
Per day.
So per day. So what is that? I mean, and then another number, and I'll stop. Regarding ad revenue. So how much money do they make off of ads? $4.3 million per day.
Per day.
Per day. So that's how big the problem is, and it's so big. To your point, and really to answer your question, it's shifting, and discipling a culture where if something is seen as normative, it's seen as normal to do.
That's right.
And because of that, what used to be behind a paywall or HBO, late at night or whatever it might be, it's readily accessible. And because of the way that we consume content now, because of streaming, it's like you can watch, I don't have to, because Monday Night Football, man, that's late for me. Maybe I'm old, I don't know. But it's like Monday Night Football, unless it's a game I really want to watch, I'm probably going to catch it the next day around like 2 p.m. or something like that, because I can't stay up to 12 a.m.
Right.
But so it's like I can watch whatever I want, whenever I want, and there's no barrier. So it's like I can have access to anything, which is not a good thing.
Wow. And you mentioned a word a few seconds ago. You mentioned discipling. It's discipling.
Yeah.
The reality, I've said this a number of times from the pulpit, is we're all being discipled by something all the time, whether we know it or not. Yeah. And the truth is, with the revenue power and the eyes it can gather, the porn industry absolutely can disciple our kids.
Yeah.
To hide it, to not let mom find out, to then say something else if she does find out, to make her feel better. But at the end of the day, you also mentioned something else. They're after you.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to go looking for it. They're going to find you.
Yeah.
And so there has to be those barriers in place. Now, you mentioned OnlyFans a few seconds ago. Define that, because there might be some people that don't quite might know exactly what
Yeah,
that
well,
is.
number one,
nor
don't
how
go there.
prevalent. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't go
Yeah,
there. Yeah, don't go look this up. Don't
Yeah.
go look up anything we're talking about today.
Yeah, but I would say, so what OnlyFans is essentially, if you look at content creation the way it is now, meaning that you've probably heard someone say, well, they're a content creator, meaning that they put content on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, and they put content there, and they have enough viewership where that entity and other marketing entities, they pay them money to create content. And that is not a new concept to the porn industry, because the porn industry has been doing that for 15, 20 years.
Right.
So that is actually a borrowed concept like from them. But now there's a website, and it's OnlyFans. And essentially, like when I was in the industry, there was probably like 10 to 15 large production companies, and then that would be filmed like on a site and then turned into a movie and then partitioned into things that you would see on a website. It doesn't work like that now. Like anyone, anywhere with an iPhone can create content and plug it on this site. And that's the danger in that, because the barrier to entry is incredibly low. All you gotta do is have an iPhone and be 18.
Right.
And what we're seeing because of that, 2 weeks ago, an 18-year-old that had been posting provocative content as a underage. It was as close as you can get to the line without going over the line. She had built a following to the extent where she was like, hey, when I turn 18, I'm gonna start an OnlyFans. When I turn 18, I'm gonna start an OnlyFans. To the extent where she made $1 million in 24 hours.
Just as soon as she started.
As soon as she started, as soon as she turned 18, like the minute, because she had already filmed it.
Right.
So the minute that the clock struck midnight, she just let's open the floodgates, to the extent where there was enough predators watching this, thinking this, that she made $1 million in 24 hours. Like, that is the world that we live in.
That's the world we
So
live in.
OnlyFans is essentially a content creation place where it's pornography, but it's presented as you can have access to my life, and it's really catfishing 2.0.
Right.
Because if you talk with some of the people that are on the back end of that or have gotten out of that, you'll see that essentially some of the girls that have a large following, whatever, you think, because what you pay for, so you pay a minimal fee to have access to their page, but what you really pay for is to talk to them. So you pay X amount of dollars for a message, X amount of dollars for, essentially you pay some money for a message, more money for a picture, the most money for a video. But it's supposedly coming directly from them. And that's where all the money takes place. But the larger creators, well, they are represented by an entity that flies them out somewhere, and they do a lot of stock footage. And then there's somebody
else doing it.
There's a sweaty guy in the basement somewhere talking to you, and they got this stock footage, and they're just plugging and playing something that sounds similar to what you're asking for. So you're
I'm
not
glad
even
you're
talking to
exposing that.
person.
That may cause some people to stop using it if they're
I hope
watching
so.
it. So, man, and OnlyFans, you sent me a stat or something that most of the people on OnlyFans like 18 to 24 or something. Girls, is that kind of?
Yeah, around 18 to 24. I think like 90% of it are girls. And I would say the most staggering statistic out of all the stuff that I shared with you regarding consumers, 89% of the consumers of that content are married. And then there's a stat from 3 different law firms from 2023 to today where they're saying 56% of all the divorces that have come through their firm, pornography is the catalyst in the divorce. Either pornography is the thing, but more often than not, pornography is the thing that was catalytic in a deeper level of infidelity.
So that's crazy. So here you are. You have pornography industry starts. It gets in our phones. It gets in our kids. It gets in our teens. Then ultimately it gets in our marriages because we're drawn to it. And there's no barrier. I can go find it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now you're seeing that it's destroying marriages, which should not shock anyone, right? Because if you think about the whole porn industry, what's it about? Right? It's not about monogamy. It's not about God's way or God's plan. Man, as you fast forward and we think about the industry, where do you see the hope?
Yeah.
And I mean, if there is hope going forward, where do you see the encouragement of the guardrails for the parents going forward?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, I love that there's people, even in the AI industry, that they're saying, hey, even social media, this is an amoral thing, not a good thing, not a bad thing, but a middle road thing. And it's not, God will tell us, it's not what in our hand is godly or ungodly. It's who's in our heart and who's Lord of our life. So what we do with what's in our hands, what can we do with social media? So there's entities that are trying to create content to scour websites to get rid of non-consensual content because of AI. There's one more thing I want to double tap on before we move on. So what does that look like in the life of a teenager? Like, why is this dangerous? Well, 113,000 times this has happened. There's a teenage boy on Instagram, Snapchat, one of those, and they get a message from a cute girl. And like, oh, okay, she's cute. And they start talking. And then all of a sudden the conversation turns sexual. And the girl says, send me a photo. And then maybe there's resistance. Normally there is. And then he finally does, because it was like, if you send me a photo, I'll send you a photo. And then the young man sends a photo, and then they say, got you. Like I got this, and look, here's a screenshot of all your family and friends. I'm gonna send it to all of them. Send me $500. You got 24 hours. So that's extortion. That's happened 113,000 times this year.
Wow.
And I would say
it's called sextortion. Going on all the time. All the time.
Well, but here's the saddest part of that. 884 times this year, that little boy has taken his life.
Oh my.
5,000 times that's happened since 2023, taking their life.
Wow. Just the embarrassment, the shame.
I mean, this is happened. This is not like somewhere else. This is happening in America.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's when I have opportunity to speak to these young men and young women, why would you send the photo?
Right.
Like, why would you send the photo? And if you're not watching porn, if someone asks you to send a naked photo,
no way.
No way.
Right.
That you're crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But something about consuming that, it's not just that it's beyond, it's so much bigger than I'm watching something I ought not watch. Well, that's discipling me. If it's discipling me, well, that input's going to determine my output. And it's going to move, it's going to blur the boundaries of what I say I wouldn't do. And in the same way to the person that at 50 that blows up their life, that loses their job and loses their ministry and all this stuff, is like, man, if you'd have asked that person 10, 15 years ago, I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my calling, I would never do that.
Right.
But it was this one act of compromise that continued to move the line, and all of a sudden you send a text that you wouldn't have sent, and then you have a conversation you shouldn't have had, and then you have a lunch that you shouldn't have had, then all of a sudden you end up doing something you said you would never do. But if you follow the breadcrumbs back, it's when you started to blur the line.
And probably porn.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. No other way.
I mean, you look at Jeffrey Dahmer on death row saying, you know what everyone on death row has in common? They're all porn addicts. Yeah. Because it deteriorates your brain and makes you see people as commodities. So if I see a person as an object, well, what I learn is, I'm supposed to love people and use things, but I start to learn, no, I use people and love things.
That's right.
Because people become one and the same.
Well, and interesting enough is what you just say. It shouldn't shock us that a bad platform brings about bad actors who ultimately going to harm you. And these are conversations that parents have to have with their kids.
Yeah.
You cannot make the assumption that, well, my kid's not looking at it, or my kid's not watching it, whatever. Yeah. That's just putting your head in the sand.
Yeah. And it's not if they see it, it's when they see it.
It's when they're going to see it and how you're going to respond to it. And so hopefully there'll be some moms and dads that'll look at this, maybe show their kids, sit down with your son or your teenager, say, it's going to be uncomfortable, But I'll
Yeah.
guarantee you, if you're not careful, there's going to be uncomfortable conversation in the future anyway.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
might as well go ahead and have it right now,
Yeah,
because if you've given them a phone, well, let's say if you're connected to the internet or they ever go out of the house, they're going to see it because it's just that readily available. So thinking about the hope going forward and the discipleship, hope in Jesus, as we just heard your story.
Yeah.
There came a moment in time
Yeah.
when God did something special in your life, and now you're one of the most outspoken people for just wake up, but also see the dangers of porn. But so think about the discipleship end of it. Parents talking to their kids, churches communicating to students along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I love that God doesn't just save us from something, he saves us for something. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the thing that I care about most is preaching the gospel. Right. But what God did in my life, he started opening my eyes up to, man, I can be a Trojan horse in that I've got information against the enemy that will help destroy the enemy. Right. And I became an expert in not only, I've got an anecdotal story of what it looks like of the brokenness in the industry, but I started looking at, man, what does porn do to the brain? Yeah. What is porn doing to society? What is the trajectory of pornography that has existed when we see it written on walls in Mesopotamia 2,000 years ago, and we see the first film that ever came out ever. First silent film comes out, 6 months later, first porn film comes out, and it's called Casting Couch. And the fact that it's called Casting Couch and a world understands what that means, like points to significantly brokenness. But I say all that to say, I found hope in Christ, and I found restoration in community, walking with Jesus, applying the Bible to my life, looking at the Bible and saying, okay, if I want to follow Jesus, there's things that need to go, there's things that need to die, there's things I need to process through. And there's just really great resources out there. Protect Young Eyes is a phenomenal resource. Bark is really good. So Bark is essentially the covenant eyes.
These are browsers. These are guards.
So Protect Young Eyes is a website. It's an informational website. It's saying, hey, here are things that are going on in culture. Here's practical steps to walk your kids through if they see it, to protect them, to regulate media, things like that. Bark is essentially covenant eyes for kids.
For kids.
So you put Bark on all of their smart devices, and what it does, it number one, it creates a barrier so that they can't access certain things. But beyond that, it tells you if they're having inappropriate conversations, meaning that not just they're saying sexual things, but if there's conversations around bullying, if they're talking about self-harm, if they're talking about drugs or anything like that, you get notified. And then you can have a proactive conversation. Yeah. And then you go way back to like kids. There's a book called Good Book, Bad Pictures, 20 years old, phenomenal resource. And it says this, hey, guess what? Private parts are private, but sometimes people put them in pictures, in books, and make movies with them. You should not see that. And in the same way, if you're scared, come to mom and dad. Hurt, come to mom and dad. If you see something you should not see, which is that, you're not bad. Don't allow shame to do what it did in the garden, to cover up and hide. Right. Come to me and let's process it. Because just because you saw that, it is a bad thing to see, but it doesn't make you bad. And what that does, it creates an opportunity for them to understand, I can bring this to you. Because what we don't say says something. Yeah. And if it's such a big deal, here's the thing that I tell parents all the time. If it's a huge deal to you, and then your kids get exposed to it, and then they bring it to you, well, now you got to answer two questions. If it was such a big deal, why didn't you tell me? If there was broken glass over there and we're walking around barefoot, man, John Mark, don't step over there, man. Yeah. I love you. Like, don't step in the glass. If I don't tell you and you step in the glass, you're going to look at me like, why in the heck didn't you tell me the broken
that?
Yeah. Then also, well, why is what you're telling me different than what I heard first? Because my friends, they say something different. The world, it shows something different. And if we're going to be different, which as followers of Jesus we're called to be, if we're going to be different, well, why did you withhold that information from me if it's so important to you? And why is it so different from everything else I see? Because we're going to have to give an apologetic for why you shouldn't watch that, why you shouldn't live that way.
And so you'd be very much an advocate for parents just with their kids. Just go get in your kid's face about this and get in their face early about it in the right way, right?
Yeah, because I think we have this instinct where it's like, man, we shouldn't look at Song of Solomon and blush,
right.
You know? Like sex shouldn't be like this thing that's like weird. Because if we treat sex as weird, then, well, they're going to believe there's something wrong.
Right.
And then they see something, they're not going to bring it to you because they're like, oh, we don't talk about this in our house.
We don't talk about this in our house. Yeah.
So by just saying, hey, this is the reality of what's in the world, and it's actively looking for you.
Yeah.
Like that's how a predator like has access, to kids. Or it's like you look at the research, like predators that prey on kids, they look for kids that have like a weak father figure.
Yeah. Yeah. And stats have proven that out. Right?
Yeah. And that's why fatherlessness is such a big deal. That's why the church, that's why you need to be plugged into the church so that, man, there's people that stand in the gap.
Yeah.
It's like if you God's design is for one man and one woman for one lifetime, but if maybe death happens, maybe divorce happens, maybe sin happens, and all of a sudden you don't have what you need, that's when the church steps in and does what the church does.
As we kind of begin to wrap this thing up, I've read your book. Tell us a little bit about your book, and tell us kind of what was the heartbeat of the book, and just give us a summary of it.
Yeah, so for me, so the book's called 7 Lies That'll Ruin Your Life, and it's really talking about, hey, here is a lie from culture, really from Satan, that if you believe that lie, the problem with believing a lie is if you believe a lie to be true, you live as if that lie is true. So I talk about how believing that lie impacted my life in a negative way, and I share in each chapter, I share someone else who also believed that lie and how it was detrimental in their life. Then I share, hey, guess what? When I look at 2 Timothy 3:16, it's talk about all scriptures God-breathed and good for teaching and rebuking and reproof. I'm like, man, reproof, what does that mean? To dismantle and destroy. Because God wants to give us a good foundation that we can stand on. So you don't need to just stop believing the lie. You've got to replace the lie with truth. And when you dismantle the lie and you replace the lie with truth, well, guess what? God has provided you with a plan and a purpose for your life that's going to lead to fruit, to fruition. And that's what the book is about. So, hey, reject the lie, cling on to the truth, and walk in the ways of Jesus. And no matter what's happened to you, no matter what you've done, no matter what you didn't have, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's going to lead to a life that's meaningful. And I would say that the last chapter is probably the thing that I'm probably most passionate about now, but it's talking about forgiveness, but it's anti-cancel culture. And really it's what's meaning is like, well, we believe that people should get what we think they deserve. And what does that look like in my life? Well, I still don't have the relationship that I would like with my dad. And when reconciliation doesn't meet your expectations, are you willing to forgive then? Right. To make it super practical, if my dad is not willing to be my dad and to be a grandpa to my kids, can I still forgive him?
Right.
Well, I'm called to. I forgive not because I'm supposed to, because I'm forgiven, but when you forgive contingent of an outcome, what you're trying to do is play God. I'm trying to maintain autonomy over my life, and we're not called to do that. So, and it's like, well, maybe that's easy to do in a moment. Maybe you felt bold, maybe you felt encouraged in that moment. Well, every Father's Day, since Cannon's been able to talk, he's always like, man, Hope's dad, Chris, is an incredible man of God, amazing, one of my favorite people in the world. Praise God for him. But Hope's family, they look like they fell out of the Hallmark Channel, And when Cannon interacts with his grandpa and he has this relationship with him, and then sometimes he looks at me, he's like, "Why don't you have a dad?"
Yeah,
hurts like heck, man.
Oh yeah, still.
And it's okay for it to hurt, but what Satan wants to do in that moment is to take that hurt and turn to bitterness.
Yeah,
that's why I love like Leviticus 6:12-13 talks about continuing to put wood on the fire. Wiping off the ashes, continuing to put wood on the fire. It's Christ's job to light the fire. It's your job to keep it burning.
That's right.
So it's like, man, I gotta bring that to the altar.
Yeah.
I can't let it lead me somewhere. I gotta take that thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. And what that looks like is saying, hey, it's okay to hurt, but this is what's most true. And I can't control the outcome, but I can continue to pursue him. Right. I can continue to forgive him. But also I can continue to hope for change. But it's so easy to get stuck in that. So that's what I hope to offer to someone. It's like, man, maybe it's yourself that you need to forgive. Maybe it's someone that did something to you, or maybe it was someone that you had hoped that would show up or should have showed up and they didn't. You can't change that. Yeah. And unforgiveness, well, you know who it hurts the most?
Absolutely.
You.
Well, and that's what I loved about the book, and even just your whole testimony story. First of all, is your openness and willingness to share it, because it's not uncommon for people to go through stuff, become a Christian, and then the further they get away from it, they hide it. Yeah. And then you get a bunch of people walking around the church like, well, I never did anything wrong. Right. And so someone walks into the church that's broken, goes, well, none of these people have been through what I've been through, when the reality is a lot of them had. But the beauty of the book is exactly what you said. You give your heart, your story, the lie you believed, then you dismantle the lie and replace it with truth. And that's what we always want to be doing in our preaching, teaching, but also the testimony. So give us a summary. We've looked at the impact of the pornography industry, the reality that our kids are going to see it. We need to stand in the gap as best we can. How do we confront it when it happens to protect our kids? Because truly there are people out there not looking, the porn industry is just looking to get it to our kids. But there are people who are using, that are bad actors, trying to use that medium to actually hurt our kids. And so just give moms and dads out there, give us out there, even adults, even men that might be struggling with pornography, just kind of give us a closing hope.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is whatever your experience has been, guess what? God stands ready to meet you where you are and loves you enough to not leave you as you are. Yeah. So if you've been struggling with it, guess what? Go confess to someone. And I would say, if you've someone that's like, man, I confess every time I watch it, but I find myself going back to it, I would challenge you with this. The depth of your confession is going to equate to the level of your healing. Meaning that if I'm like, man, I just go to this site and I just keep doing that thing again, name it. This is what I do. This is what I watch. This is how I feel. And this is how I feel before I do it. Right. Because what you're going to find is, the place in which I believe that I have unmet needs or I feel needy, well, there's a wound there. Yeah. So so many people have confessed unto God, but maybe you need to confess unto a brother or a sister so they can pray for you, but also you can get to the root of what's going on. And then in that, man, be practical. If I keep tripping over something, move the dang wire.
Or go a different direction.
So maybe I need a flip phone. So for me, I had deleted all my social media. Man, if you bring your phone into your bedroom or your bathroom, don't do that. Just simple. And it's important for you to be in a desert for a season. Right. And so God can meet you and love on you. And for me, I had to get some counseling. It's just like I needed to sort some stuff out. And for whoever is dealing with that. And also it's like we can protect our kids. And the way that we protect our kids, we're not passive, we're proactive. Right. Saying, hey, this is who you are in Christ. Because if we know who we are, it doesn't matter who we're not. We're not going to be wrestling with comparison if we're solidified in our identity. Like you're a son or you're a daughter of the King of Kings. Right. And that you're worth more than that. And this can hurt you. So, it's important that we understand that we've got access to a kingdom where, man, we've got access to royalty. So what does that mean? We should look like it. We should dress like it. We should talk like it. We should live like it. That's right. And if you understand that, well, that provides you an ability to be resistant against the scheme of the enemy. So you need to know that there's an enemy and have an armor, have a shield, have a team to go up against it.
Man, thanks so much, Josh, for an incredible, just your heart, your life, your ministry, man, and God, just for God to use you in a powerful way. You still got to keep speaking the truth. Yes, and so I pray for your energy and your, where are you going to next, So
I'll be with Skip Isaac in Albuquerque, New Mexico next weekend.
God bless.